What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. Hope you're all doing well and staying healthy out there. In the meanwhile, we are indoors. We have a special guest with us today, Elizaveta Kolesnichenko. I hope I didn't butcher that too much. Thank you so much for taking the time and being here. I hope you're as excited as I am to share your profession with our audience.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and nice try on pronouncing my name, but it was good enough. Happy to be here and happy to share my journey.
Yeah, super. I already heard from Ronan that you go by the short name of Liza instead, so I was super glad to hear that. But yeah, so you are currently head of incubation at ACE Incubator in Amsterdam.
Yes.
And before we jump into that, I just wanted to quickly mention that maybe for the people who are not into the whole entrepreneurship segment, you could explain what exactly ACE, so Amsterdam Center of Entrepreneurship, what exactly it is, what an incubator is for those who are not familiar with the whole scene.
Sure thing. So I guess I can start with what incubation is, because it's a pretty non-conventional name, I would say, for somebody who's not familiar with the term. So you can think of incubation as a way to kickstart your business. So if you have a business idea and you're just starting and you're trying to find support, access to networks, also some guidance in terms of direction you want to go and what are the steps you can make without making too many mistakes, incubation is a process which guides entrepreneurs through their journey as a founder. So think about it as an actual incubator, like the physical incubator where organisms live. You can see like parallels here. It's a safe environment where entrepreneurs can grow and thrive. So in that regard, ACE, so we are indeed Amsterdam Center for Entrepreneurship. We're a university business incubator located in Amsterdam. What's unique about us is that we are owned by 4 academic institutions in Amsterdam. So we are part of 2 universities, 1 University of Applied Science and also University Medical Center. So in that regard, we help students, graduates, or staff and researchers who have innovative ideas and want to start a business. I can explain a little bit how we do that, but I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, sure. No, while you're at it, why not?
Sure. So how we help those founders is by running what we call an incubation program. It's a condensed program of 9 weeks where entrepreneurs get kind of the very basic essentials and support to keep growing as a business. So generally, I would say there's few trajectories that entrepreneurs take along the program. First one is education, because typically we work with founders who are experts in their domain. So let's say they're very technical or very scientific, and they know a lot about their area of research or area of interest, but they don't necessarily know how to deal with all the business aspects around that idea. So we provide education, workshops, and content on basic, let's say, fundamentals of what it is to build your business and what are the important factors to consider when starting a business from scratch. So that's one. Then second is we have kind of weekly sessions with the founders as a group to make them accountable for the progress that they're making. So we do kind of stand-ups with founders to check in with them how they're feeling, what progress have they made or haven't made, and what are obstacles that they're facing. There's always some sort of obstacles. So if they say we don't have any issues, that's a lie. And last but not least, of course, it's connection to the networks, because it can be pretty challenging to get a foothold into the door. So we act as a, let's say, connector to many parties in the ecosystem. So that can be mentors. We have a large mentor pool who offer guidance and support for founders. That can be specific services such as legal questions or accountancy or even infrastructure. Then also large corporations who are looking for new innovative solutions, and of course investors who are also able to support founders in different ways.
Wow.
So we bring kind of all these aspects together in our 9-week program.
Yeah, well, those are a lot of things to cover in 9 weeks.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty intense.
Yeah, I find it so fascinating to get an insight into those ongoings at an incubator, because from the outside it always seems like this mechanism where startups enter and then somehow they go out and all of a sudden they're supposed to be better off. It's always like, what exactly is happening there? What are you telling
Black
them?
box. Well, it's not really a black box. We're quite transparent about what goes on
Yeah.
inside.
No, but yeah, great. Thank you so much for educating us on that. I saw actually, I think yesterday that Amsterdam, because you always think of Netherlands, the small country in Europe, but Amsterdam is actually ranked 15th in startup ecosystem globally last year, which kind of blew my mind, because I thought of all the big cities which probably attract a lot of businesses, Amsterdam probably won't be up there as much, but on a global scale.
It's really amazing to see, actually. I think, well, don't quote me on this, but I think in Europe it even climbed to 4th place as a startup hub, so to say. So that means that there's fruitful ground and favorable conditions for startups to develop here. And it's been evolving a lot in the last years, and it's pretty amazing to see how everything comes together. But I have to say, I mean, Amsterdam, of course, is a big center for entrepreneurship in the Netherlands, but there's many initiatives all across the country that are currently helping entrepreneurs in their ventures. So that's great to see, really.
And I suppose also I love how in the Netherlands, English is such a common thing. It's not like you don't have that big of a language barrier. And then especially in bigger city, Amsterdam, with being touristy, also where I'm located right now in Maastricht, it's incredible to see how people from all generations are able to speak fluent English, I suppose.
Yeah. I'm very happy about that, because my Dutch is in progress, let's say. It's it can be better than it is right now.
I mean, mine too, to be fair. I've been living here for 4 years, and my Dutch is a little bit at the same stage as it was 4 years ago.
We try.
Yeah, we do try. We do try. How many applications, I wonder, does ACE get per year? And how many startups do you then take into your care and custody?
Yeah, good question. So if we look, so we have 2 rounds of the program a year, a spring batch and a fall batch. Typically, we take 10 to 15 startups per each batch. We call them cohorts. It's kind of the official, let's say, startup name for a group of founders. And for each cohort, we receive about 130 applications. So yeah, the acceptance rate is about 10%, you can say.
Wow. All right. So I'm even more impressed that Kibo has managed to secure its place in one of the latest rounds. But just like in any other business, right? Also in ACE, there are managers, for example, for departments like marketing. There are program coordinators. But you, as head of incubation, that title is not really that common in the general job market. So I wanted to ask you, what exactly does head of incubation mean? What is your responsibility there?
Yeah, indeed it's a pretty unusual title, I would say, of what it entails. So my responsibilities, I started originally as a program manager. Yeah, I was responsible for more, let's say, organization of the programs that we run. But then I transitioned to head of incubation. What that means is that I'm responsible kind of for overseeing strategic development of our startup activities, including incubation and kind of how startups grow and mature. I'm very much also in touch, direct contact with the founders. So I also, of course, we have a very vast network of people and experts who help them out. But I guess seeing so many startups, so on my watch of 2 years, it's been over 50 startups that I actively kind of engaged with. You pick up a thing or two. So I really like sharing also experiences and seeing kind of the big picture of the common struggles that startups experiencing. So being in touch with the founders, of course, and then managing the networks that we run. So investors, mentors, corporates, and kind of tying them together into the programs that we run.
All
So
right.
it's a lot of everything, I would say, and kind of bits and pieces.
Yeah, it sounds like a little bit of a mix and match between internal and external relations.
Yeah, very much, yeah.
Yeah, because you're in contact with the startups, but you also take care of the network for the startups.
Yeah.
So yeah, great. You get to be everywhere at the same time. That also ties what you said into the next question that I had, and I was wondering this, and now that you said that you've been also in touch with the founders and 50 startups, so when you take in those small companies who are trying to make it, right, and you mentor them, you connect them with your network, you give them resources, do you sometimes feel like a parent or a doctor helping out a patient? I'm asking because I wonder how much mental work or then also mental stress maybe one would take home after work.
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, I would answer yes and no. I think it's important to treat also founders as adults because they are adults. They know what, well, they supposedly know what they're doing, and it's their business, so they're fully in charge. But I think it's also good to give them some food for thought and to sometimes help them to gain a different perspective on the questions that they have. So more kind of guiding them towards opening their view, and that there may be other options available for them, but in the end they're the ones that need to make a decision. And I mean, if I were to tell them what to do, then it's a bit kind of, are they really in the right lane, let's say.
Mhm.
So it is, you do have certain attachments, I would say, because it's also kind of your pride. And I find it really rewarding working with the founders and being surrounded by so many bright people with different ideas. I think it also pushes me to learn more about different fields. And yeah, you of course share their successes and share their stories. But in the end, it's for a short period of time. And of course, you hope to give them the ground to kind of thrive and learn, but they also need to take the responsibility. And in the end, the success of the company will be a lot up to them.
Yeah, that makes sense. Lawyers or doctors, they're always notorious for taking work home and spending actually more work hours than they do on paper. Do you feel like you have that problem working with these dynamic companies and situation and scenarios?
Well, I guess you need to be flexible, yes. It's not, I would say, a very typical 9 to 5 type of job. Every day is also different. And of course, in the end, you take responsibility for many things and projects need to be delivered. So it's important to manage the time accordingly because there's many things and projects in parallel that are going on.
All right, then talking about 9 to 5, we always want to have our audience get as close as possible of an experience to understand what a certain profession entails. So now it's a Tuesday afternoon, pretty
Yeah.
regular midweek type of vibe. How was your day until like today? Anything crazy? What did you do?
Well, I think, generally my schedule is never the same, I would say. And it can also vary based if we're running the program or if we're preparing for the program. So there's large distinctions. Right now, we're actually in the middle of the program, just started last week. So my Mondays and Wednesdays are entirely dedicated for that. Today's Tuesday, so in the morning I had 2 hours of Ask Me Anything. So founders just dropped in via Zoom and had one-on-one chats with me and my colleague Daniela, and it can be anything. So any questions they have, we try to support them and answer them and kind of navigate who else they should speak to. I really enjoy these because it allows for a personal kind of connection and also individual support. So that was my day 10 to 12. Then had a couple of calls and also some more strategic planning for programs for next year. So, and then, yeah, then the podcast.
All right. Okay, so cool. Then the question is obviously if this was your day today now while the program is intact, how would your typical day be in the off season, so to say?
Yeah, off season is actually fairly busy as well because let's say, as I mentioned, there's two phases. So when we're running the program and when we're preparing, and frequently preparation takes actually more time than running the program itself because during the program you just enjoy the ride and you enjoy kind of chatting with the startups and helping them out. But to set the ground and to make sure everything is kind of connected and aligned, that is the preparation time. And before, I mean, one of the also important aspects of the job is recruitment of the startups. So that is a big effort from the entire team. We reach out to many parties, to our partners. We give talks, we give workshops. We also are in touch with many organizations, universities, etc. So a lot of our efforts also go into making ACE known and identifying promising startups that we can help.
Yeah, there's so like because normal jobs don't have off season and on season, so that's so interesting to know. When you say the job is not a regular 9 to 5 job, how much variance are we talking about?
Well, I mean that more in the way that it's not like we clock in and clock out. I mean, we're a pretty small team, and also we all take a lot of responsibility for the things that we're doing. So pretty autonomous in that way, which is great. I mean, of course, we work together as well a lot, but it's more in the way that yeah, there's always things you have to do. It's more about how you manage your time accordingly and how do you make as efficient as possible. And there's always things coming up last minute. So it's being a little bit flexible and understanding, kind of setting the priorities right, and yeah, supporting the team.
All right, it's everything is so interesting for me to hear from you. All the business work and the networking and the social skills, and especially for me, it's interesting because your education or your past career started pretty different, maybe at the other end of the spectrum. So it seemed. Because you didn't study business, you didn't start off close to the startup niche at all. Is that true?
That's true.
So let's talk about the younger you, right? Because you graduated from high school, and I read that you jumped into a 3-year pre-med program at Utrecht University.
Yeah.
So what was your thought back then? The younger you, what was your thoughts on your career? Why the heavy science background?
Yeah. I think the first time, well, my recollection of my first career choice when I was, I think, around 8 or 10 was to be an archaeologist to go to Egypt. Then I went to
Wow.
Egypt and I thought, okay, that's a lot of dust, so maybe not for me. But then, yeah, maybe my background, I'm originally from Russia. I moved away about 10 years ago now. And I did my high school in Spain, and I was in a British high school. So I was focusing primarily on sciences. So I did all the STEM courses. That's what I was good at. I guess that was my decision making process, and also liked it very much, to be honest. So after that, it was more kind of thinking, okay, given my background, what is it that I want to do? And it wasn't a very easy choice, to be honest. But I was always leaning towards more biomedical science research. I've always been fascinated by humans and how we kind of work and operate. So I went to University College in Utrecht. And since it's a liberal arts and sciences program, you had a bit more flexibility and room to kind of figure out the things you want to do. But that being said, I chose pre-med. So for those who don't know, it's pre-medical track that prepares you for medical school, which is the, let's say, out of all the tracks you could possibly take, the most rigid one in terms of the courses that you have to complete for your degree. But that being said, I also had room to take courses like linguistics or psychology or neuroscience. So that also was very interesting for me. After that, I also had the opportunity to go on a semester abroad in Singapore, which was a very, very different experience, eye-opening in comparison to university college. I decided that I want to pursue with neuroscience. Again, this is kind of zooming in into fascination about human beings and our brain particularly. So with that, I joined Masters in Cognitive Neurobiology at the University of Amsterdam. It's a 2-year research master. And it also was pretty flexible in the way what you could do with it. So we only had courses for, I believe, 3 months. And the remaining of the 2 years, you had to do 2 very long internships. But you can do whatever you want, essentially. So for me, I chose the kind of domain of brain-computer interfaces. And so it's, let's say, in a very rough description, it's a way to record and understand brain signals and use those brain signals to modulate any device or any environment.
So cool.
Yeah, very cool. Actually, I'm still very like this topic. So I was doing 2 research projects on a topic, one in Utrecht and one in Austria, in South Austria. I got a publication from this, which was very gratifying as a student, of course. But then after this, I had a bit of a choice to make what to do next. Let's say when you're in a scientific education, the most conventional trajectory for you would be to pursue a PhD. And that's what most people did actually after their graduation. And I was looking into that as well. I had my doubts a little bit, but I decided to try it out. And I did have a choice to join a PhD program at the University of Amsterdam, but last minute I decided wasn't for me. Numerous reasons. I guess I was more interested in a direct application of science for society. So that's something that has been driving me for a long time. And that is actually a strong reason why I ended up at ACE. In between that, so let's say I actually found a internship project at an early stage startup. It was related to data science, and I was like, okay, I can do data science. I did some data analysis during my courses. And I joined the early stage startup, knew nothing about startups, nothing at all. But I was always very curious, and I like to think that I'm a quick learner in that regard. So that was a very interesting experience for me. And I learned a lot about how early stage startups work and what kind of problems they face. And then came the opportunity to join ACE. And that's when I thought it's a perfect fit for my background and also my kind of interest to bridging the knowledge produced in the academia with society. Because at ACE, we primarily focus, let's say, on science and tech-based innovations.
Right. I think that story is so... I don't know. It's like for all the people out there who we are trying to help with career advice and career changes and finding their perfect job, what they enjoy doing, having a story like yours, which goes from pre-med to data science to startups, being head of incubation, it's such a cool story, and it just humbles everything down. It makes it more relatable. It seems like, and every person, an everyday person can do that. You don't have to be, I don't know, set up with a particular environment to pursue what you want. So I kind of want to dive into a little bit of those changes that you made. So you said when you went to Singapore, it was an eye-opener for you?
Yeah. Well, I guess, yeah, in many ways, because the university system, first of all, was very different. So I went to Nanyang Technological University, which is ranked fairly highly, and you can really understand why. The grading system, well, first of all, at the university college, classes were very small. So you know your professor, you know all your peers, it's maximum 20 people, which is a very unique setting. In Singapore, there was a lecture hall of 400 people. And yeah, it's very difficult to, let's say, to speak up, to tell your opinion. And also the grading system is entirely different. It's on the bell curve. So you're compared to all 400 people in your class. And if you do average, then you're at the B level. So in order to get an A, you need to be 10% above your class. So it's very, let's say, intellectually demanding in a good way. Also, I would say slightly more competitive environment to be in. That's one. But of course, as a country itself, it's a fascinating place with so many cultures, with so many integrations, and such a developed place as well, given its fairly recent history. So it's just interesting to kind of take that all in and see different side of things.
Yeah, a lot of also our past guest, which was Oscar. He also discovered his I don't know, his passion kind of through traveling, and his eventually his career now was founded by him just starting to travel and expand his horizon a bit and see different cultures. How was it? What made you change your mind from, because you were doing the pre-med, right? And then you switched to neurology. When did that switch get turned in your mind, and why?
I think I was considering actually multiple directions, all in one way or another related to biomedical sciences. Well, one thing after bachelor's, I knew for sure I wanted to continue with a master. So that's the first decision I made, I guess. Many people took a gap year. Unfortunately, well, or fortunately, I wasn't in a position to do that. Also, with being an immigrant in the country, yeah, it gets a little bit more complicated in terms of the motivations also in getting things done fast, because otherwise you can't stay in the country. Yeah, so first decision was to continue with the master's, I would say, because not everybody makes that choice. Once I decided that, I think, yeah, I was looking more kind of which direction of biomedical science would I be interested in. I was actually looking into public health and also epidemiology, which would be very relevant right now.
Yeah.
And yeah, but then I think neuroscience was pretty strong for me. As I said, I took several courses also during my bachelor about neuroscience. And for me, kind of understanding or trying to understand such a complex system as a brain was a really interesting challenge to pursue. So I really wanted to know more from let's say biological point of view, how we function and how the brain modulates a lot of almost all of our behaviors, thoughts, and kind of determines who we are as people. So yeah, I would say it was a fairly easy choice to make.
What fascinated me also about your story was that you finished every step of the way. Even though you switched and changed careers, you finished your pre-med, then you finished your master's, and then it's never like it was never like, oh, I want to do this, so I'm gonna stop doing this now and start doing the other thing, which a lot of people also have on which were on this podcast. There were, for example, Ramses. He was almost done with his bachelor's, and he said, "You know what? No, I don't. I want to do this now." And then
this is interesting. I think it very much depends on your circumstances. I think it's important to kind of listen to yourself and see whether something is not fitting you, that being a path you're taking or a career. But then for me, well, I was quite lucky with what I was doing was also something I enjoyed doing. That's first, but also having different circumstances. So I'm very lucky that my parents were able to support me also along my student journey. But yeah, there is also a limit to that. And again, as I mentioned, both financial side, but also my kind of legal status were dependent on me kind of finishing up stuff and also finding a job. So there is not much choice around that, to be honest. So it's something certainly to consider, kind of where you stand and how much room you have to try things. But that being said, I think my decision to join early stage startup was a good trying point for me to kind of see something different and try myself in a different environment. So I guess kind of the trying is good. Like otherwise, unless you try, you don't know, right? But I also see importance in finishing stuff and having a goal and then working towards that.
Yeah, I think it's really admirable. Like people, when they have doubts about something, they tend to a lot of times when they have the chance and, for example, the financial stability or liberty to do so, they just drop it. And then sometimes they work out, but then it's a little bit more of a risk. And when we talk about risk, I think, for example, in your career, maybe the biggest risk or uncertainty was when you decided to not pursue your PhD and started to work for the startup Rocket DNA. It is, right? What did you have input of friends and family? What did they think about it that you kind of went off of that traditional academic path that you were on?
I think they were very understanding, and of course they wished the best for me, and also to hoped for me that I find my place. I think like every parent or friend does for their children or friends. It took some time to also explain what is it exactly that I'm doing. Neither myself nor anybody else around me was very much familiar with the startup term to begin with, and also what that entails. So I guess it was a process for all of us to find out what it would entail. But I'm very grateful for this opportunity, and it taught me also quite a lot about myself and trying kind of how I would react in different situations, let's say non-conventional ones.
Right. And why a startup, if I might ask, out of all situations?
I think I was at the time, I actually found the position through a university job board, and it caught my eye. Well, data science title caught my eye, and then there was an addition, new venture performance. I was like, what is new venture? And then I looked through the description, and it sounded very interesting because I think the team was around 5 people at the time. So really, as Kibo, to be fair, like at a similar stage, even a little bit earlier. So I ended up it was a bit of ambiguity in terms of what I would be doing. And I guess that drew my attention because I was like, oh, this is not like a super strict criteria of what I need or what I would be doing. And then I engaged in a conversation with founders, and I found the project interesting, and also kind of the possibility for me to try new stuff very interesting. And from day one, they were very supporting and also very trustful of my judgment. So I took kind of full ownership of the decisions that I made, which I really enjoyed. So I like, I guess, taking ownership of the things I do. So if I do great. If I mess up, then it's on me.
Yeah, exactly. That's also one of the things that I love about working with Kibo is, for example, now this podcast is now at this stage is entirely on me, right? So I'm doing it top to bottom, and when something goes good, it's just so gratifying because it's 100% what you put in is what turns out. So I can definitely relate to that. What I don't necessarily can relate to, and what I'm really interested in is qualifications wise, right? Because as you said, when you went into data science, you had some courses or knowledge before that, but to jump into working in data science, and then also later when you made the switch then to ACE as a program manager, you with your heavy science and research background, where did you ever feel like you were underqualified? Did you take extra courses? How did that work?
Sure. I guess it's fairly normal to feel like, oh, I don't hit 100% criteria, but then I think especially for women, it's more common to feel that way. I think there's been multiple studies that show that because if you look at the qualifications that are asked in the job position, men are more likely to apply even if they don't hit, let's say, even 50% rather than women. Don't quote me on the numbers, by the way. But yeah, I think what was asked is experience handling the data, which I did have through my research work, because research, a lot of it was, well, most of it was actually handling data, very specific type of data, but still the general concepts are very much applicable. And I think they also required the business qualification. But then again, yeah, I didn't have that, but we still chatted and it was a good fit. So in that regard, I say, well, in that particular case, it was pretty flexible. Yeah, actually, I did do some data science, but to be honest, I was also doing different things. And the founders were very trusting and supporting in the way that they asked me, what is it that I want to do? And then also I had the freedom to try out different stuff. So I really appreciated that. So data science, let's say, is more of a formal title with some of course, involvement, but there were also other things.
I think especially in new ventures and small startups, your role is very dynamic, like in relation to what it says on paper. In the startup, you're involved in like oftentimes a lot more than what you are on paper.
Yeah.
And what about from data science then to program manager?
Yeah. So yeah, indeed, the opportunity kind of presented itself, and I found it very curious. Again, as I mentioned, I am very interested in translating knowledge to society and bringing impact with that. So I found it a good opportunity for me to learn more about how incubators work. Yeah, in terms of program management, so a lot of it actually was very organizational stuff, which I'm I am pretty good at, and also I enjoy doing that. So it was a good fit. Of course, there is a very steep learning curve in both places, and that's something I really enjoy in a place where I can grow, I can develop, and there is an opportunity, yeah, to learn new things. So that is a very important factor for me. And yeah, of course, I had a lot of support from the team. So I very much appreciate and I'm grateful for them to also give me room and space to grow. But in a way, it was also like christening by fire, because I was thrown immediately into the program, the incubation program, and then I kind of had to figure stuff out on a place, which frequently is the best place, the best way to learn, but well, you can debate about that.
Well, it's certainly also one of the hardest but fastest way to learn.
Yeah.
But when you went into this direction, right, of eventually starting your job at ACE, did you ever feel like what a lot of people feel like is that they kind of waste or throw away what they've been working on for so many years now? So your bachelor's, your master's, all those hours into research in that field, and now you switch to business. Do you ever feel like sad or you regret just wasting those years?
I don't see it as wasting. I think those years were very formative for me in terms of my interests, in terms of my character as well, and kind of figuring out myself and my skill sets. So absolutely no regret. It still crosses my mind. Well, I think less now than it did before. Like, oh, what if I did a PhD, or what if I were to continue my career in science? And I have immense amount of respect for researchers. That is a super important job that they're doing, and you have to be really, really passionate. I mean, like to do that. I mean, in any job, to be honest. Yeah, but I don't think I took a wrong turn anywhere, if that's your question. So I'm happy where I am right now, and I guess in one way or another, my journey also makes sense in my head.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's so fascinating and inspiring to others. I think your story. That's also one of the big reasons why I really wanted you on the podcast and have you share your story to other people. But yeah, now that you've worked at ACE for so long as both program manager and head of incubation, and you're so deeply involved into that business now, I want to ask you, what is it that holds you in that profession, right? Like you don't, I don't know if you're still thinking about switching industries or not, but what holds you as of right now? What is the fascination that you have at ACE working for an incubator?
Yeah, what I like the most about this job is really being embraced with so many bright people with different ideas. It's also very rewarding to help founders and help entrepreneurs to succeed, even in small things. It's yeah, it's seeing kind of the outcome of the job is very satisfying. So I would say being with the founders and helping them is the most amazing part, and of course also the part that because we cover so many industries, we're not very specific on, let's say, only AI or only hardware. Um, you need to be creative also to, first of all, understand what they're talking about. You need to do your research and have general kind of understanding of the markets where they're operating in, of the how trends are developing. So I read a lot of newsletters, for example, or a lot of articles to kind of for myself because I'm interested in that, of course, but also to be of help and be on the same level as founders in order to kind of yeah deliver the right information for them, I guess. So that I also find very very intriguing for me.
All right. Yeah, for me as a person also, I suppose that working there for many years, your general knowledge of industry must elevate so much. And that's also what I love, like just dipping my toes into everything, seeing what everything is about in the world because there are so many things.
Yeah, there's so many things, and I guess the more you find out, the more you understand you don't know that much.
Connected to that, to give the audience some more insight into your profession, also, what were some things that you didn't expect that
Hmm.
did come with the job? It can be both positive or negative.
I need to think about that.
No, no, take your
Yeah,
time.
yeah. I actually didn't expect how rewarding it is to kind of help people. As I mentioned previously, I think one of the more challenging. I wouldn't say it's not. I don't dislike this. It's more of a challenge. It's understanding, trying to keep the big picture of an organization and kind of our position within Amsterdam ecosystem, within national ecosystem, and trying to kind of align all the initiatives and keep reminding ourselves that there's also a lot of competition, direct and indirect, which in one way you can see as a good thing because there is high demand for these services and there's also a lot of these services to help founders. So that's a good thing, but it's more kind of staying relevant as an organization, staying on top of our game, and also making sure that we provide the right service for our shareholders, which are the four
Mm.
academic institutes in Amsterdam.
Yeah, so there are a lot more forces at play than you would initially see.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. So yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. All right. Then um, another interesting point is I wonder, just out of pure interest, I wanted to ask you, working so close with those startups, seeing the ins and outs and how and what they do, if they fail or succeed, eventually, have you ever thought about pursuing a startup of your own?
Sure, I did. Yeah, yeah. I think it's natural to think that way, especially when you're always in this mindset of creating new things. Um, I guess well, I wouldn't put it off my plate, let's put it this way. If the time comes and the right idea comes, why not? I think not something for me at the moment, but who knows what the future holds.
Yeah, there would be an even uh, the icing on the cake of your story, from research to data science to incubator to entrepreneur. It went from here all the way to there. Let's see. But to give people to let them know you a little bit better in regards to your personality, so they see what kind of person sits behind the profession that you have. What are personally your long-term views, goals, achievements that you would like to accomplish in your life? Doesn't have to be directly correlated with your occupation, just in general, motivation-wise.
Ooh, that's a very difficult question.
It's a very deep question.
Yeah, indeed. Mm. Well, in terms of occupation, in terms of career, my biggest goal is to continue bring impact. I mean, that can be done in various shapes and forms, but I like seeing direct outcome of my work and how it impacts people and society around me. So that is something very important for myself. Yeah, in terms of personal goals, I'm about to become a Dutch citizen. I mean, you can consider that as a goal. Makes life a little bit easier while living in Europe. Yeah, I would like to stay in the Netherlands and in Amsterdam for the time being, but I'm also open to potentially relocating in the future. Again, who knows? Yeah, I've been lucky to live in 5 different places in the last 10 years, and I like challenging myself. I guess that's a common thread as well through the journey.
Right. Well, let's see what the future holds. But again, I will say it 3 times or 5 times. I don't care. I say it in every podcast. Is such a cool thing to be able to talk to you and have you tell us the experience that you went through, so people can relate, people don't feel alone anymore. And it's just such a pleasure having you on this podcast today. And I don't know if you have any more questions for me, the audience in general.
Oh, well, first of all, thank you very much for having me. I hope, even though this, I guess, a little bit non-conventional journey, I hope it was inspiring for some of you and maybe gave you some hope that you don't have to necessarily fit into certain standards to try new things. And if I were to say last thing, I guess it's don't be afraid to try new stuff. You can find out a lot about yourself, both what you like and equally as important what you don't like. Yeah, and in terms of questions, I don't think I have any.
No, but that's great. Also, the last advice that you gave, I think, it's motivating for a lot of people. Having you as a little bit of a role model, I suppose you are now. In terms of what you accomplished, where you are now, you like what you're doing. So that's something that a lot of people strive to achieve. And yeah, I hope all of you could have drawn value out of this conversation between me and Liza and her experience. I know I definitely did. I do with every podcast, and I also say it at the end of every podcast, but it's just so true. And that's why it's so amazing that I'm in the position to share this with you guys. And yeah, I mean, there you have it. Liza, I hope you have a wonderful day. To all of you out there, thank you for tuning in. We'll see each other in the next episode, or we hear each other in the next episode, because our podcast is now also live on Spotify and Google Podcasts, and will be on much more platforms in the future to come. So keep an eye out for that. And me, Liza, you and me will hopefully see each other again down the line in the future. I'm very interested to see what it holds. Maybe by then you'll be an entrepreneur. Maybe by then you're relocated. Who knows? But yeah, who knows?
Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. It was really my pleasure. And until the next one, take care, everyone.